Steve and Alan's pro tips in a short time. Learn a lot.
Hey, Alan.
Hey, Steve.
So we're both busy this week, but we usually make time to read whatever Scott Galloway, Prof G, sends to us. We're both on his email list and loyal listeners,
Big fans.
big fans. And yesterday, the research team from Prof G sent out an article entitled What AI is Doing to School. And it was written by one of his team members, Mia Silverio, who conducted some research with teachers. Did you get a chance to read through that?
I did. I did. It's an arresting opening. Do you remember writing 20-page papers in college? That's not happening anymore. Today's college students struggle to write 750 words.
Yeah. And I think for folks who are, what would you say, probably 30 and older, maybe even late 20s and older, remember writing the 20-page papers. And in the last few years, I can attest to this, that has vanished. The students, they can't do it or they won't do it. Or even if it's like that joke I have about the drumline instructor who would tell the second bass drummer, "You need to go practice your part." And I'm thinking that kid could
Yeah,
practice
yeah.
his part all day for 8 hours. It's not going to get any better. I think in a lot of ways, the students that I'm seeing come to college now are in that exact same situation where I could say write a 20-page paper and they could dedicate an entire week to it and they still wouldn't be able to do it.
I had trouble writing a 10-page paper because I turned it into a 20-page paper.
Yeah, shocker.
That's Alan.
But yeah, so I read through it because you know, a lot of times those types of articles will show up in my news feed, and I'm like, yep, it's clickbait, AI doom, scrolling, and AI is going to ruin this, AI is going to ruin that. But since this was from Scott Galloway, his stuff is usually pretty thoughtful and has a point to it. And so I dug into it, and my takeaway was a little bit different than the authors. I think she was feeling pretty gloomy about the whole thing. And I was thinking, well, yeah, you're right. Right now, when a student is in math class or a social studies or history or English, they can ask Gemini to just give them the answer and then they can be done with it. But you know what classes you can't just ask Gemini to do the work for you?
Is it any sort of fine arts like art or drama or wait a second, band, choir, and orchestra?
Yeah. And I am, as you know, pretty late to the game when it comes to all things trendy, tech wise and otherwise, and the new method books and the new whatever. I'm usually behind on all of that, but I'm not seeing a whole lot of when we're talking about advocacy for what we are doing and knowing that parents and administrators, school leaders want our students to be learning how to think. And that was the author's main point was AI is making it such that the students just can't think anymore because they don't have to, because most of what they are learning in most of their classes, they can just ask AI to do it. And I'm sure we're going to have some listeners. And by the way, I love all of our listeners who are the non-music teachers. I think it's great we have teachers from other subjects, and we want to hear from you about this very thing. But it seems like the traditional way, if we think about how did we teach geography? How did we teach English? How did we teach math? How did we teach choir? How did we teach band in 1983? That we could probably more closely do what we were doing as music teachers in 1983 and not have it be affected or have students be able to cheat,
Right.
with AI
Yeah.
versus all those other subjects. And I think
Yeah.
that's something we could probably agree on. I'm sure there are many teachers in those other subjects who are doing a great job adapting to this. But this is something where we can say to parents and to administrators, hey, you want the students to learn how to think? You want to force them to do something. You want something that AI can't do. AI can't play the trumpet for them. And I'm even noticing this too. I haven't really had a chance to talk to you about this, but I teach a music fundamentals class at and it's a gen ed class. And, I usually get pretty good enrollment. And I think one of the reasons they like it is almost all the stuff we have to do in there. They come in every day and they grab an actual piece of paper and they have to have a pencil and they have to write a G on the treble clef. And then they have to find out what is a fourth higher than that. And that is something that, like, you could go to Gemini and say, what is a fourth higher than G, or what is a minor sixth higher than A? And it could give you the answer, but then you still have to go through the process of writing it out. And it can't just give you the answer. And what Mia Silverio was saying is a lot of people are arguing, well, no, AI is like a calculator. It's like a resource tool. And her point was that's true probably for the Allens and Steves of the world who are
Right.
using AI to help them be a little bit more efficient or to maybe find an answer faster. But at the end of the day, Allen and Steve hopefully are still evaluating what that AI result is and using it more as a calculator. And so I could see the students in the music fundamentals or music theory class using artificial intelligence and in a way to help them get the answer, but they still need to know how to write it out. They still need to know how to recognize it. If Gemini says, yeah, it's this line, it's the fourth line, the student still needs to recognize, okay, yep, Gemini's using a treble clef, the fourth line, and then go over to their piece of paper and transfer it over. And I'm fine with that. Thoughts?
Yeah, a lot. I mean, I've got a lot of thoughts. I'm in a situation. I still think about the writing part of it all. I think about the ability to put sentences together because that's important. I'm in a position. I've been in a position in the last week where I have judged scholarship essays, and I've done leadership training with high school youth and college age youth. And I've been thinking about this article in the background as I've been doing all of these things. There are these two essays for the scholarship I'm looking at. And in one case, one essay was poorly written with excellent ideas. And the other essay was clearly written by AI. And it wasn't bad, but it was clearly like this kid clearly didn't have the skills to really write a thing, but he really did have good ideas. So that's an example of it's not getting used like a calculator. It's not getting used the way that you and I use it. He should have taken that first essay that was terribly written and asked for some proofreading help after he did it. And then he should have taken that second essay. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't want to get into the weeds on like how to do it, but that's the next thing that has to happen is we have to teach people how to do it. And in music, we don't have to teach people how to use it. We are just keeping those brains expanded. Something else I've seen in the article, she talked about how we banned phones 15 years too late. But I'm witnessing a trend where students are not getting their phones out unless they have to, for the most part. The phone addiction, I'm starting to see that go away with young people. I see them talking honestly about how they're glad that phones are going away. And so I do think we have a moment right now, a moment where we can do this advocacy and say, hey, you want a subject area that grows the brain? It is music. And what I'm seeing in music students when I'm out doing work with them is they have a workbook where they can take notes. And some of them are just really leaning in, taking tons of notes. The other thing I see is more doodling and coloring than I've ever seen before. There's always been a certain amount of that, but it's like I've got this writing implement in my hand. I've got paper in front of me. I need to do something with my hands. And there's some very elaborate decorations that I've seen, but this is an expression of they need to be doing something. And then music can be that thing. You want to do something? Practice some scales or put together this piece of music or work on this trio. You're right. We are the antidote to this. And we are doing a lot of gloom and doom in our profession of shrinking resources and lower enrollment and a lower level of commitment. And that's driven by a number of other factors. But if one thing that we can do is find ways to incorporate into our vocabulary, this is unique, this is special, there are no shortcuts. When I was teaching 20, 30 years ago, the way that I phrased it was you can't put this in a microwave oven or drive through like a drive through to get your hamburger super fast. Like there are no shortcuts here to getting this concert put together. And that's one of the things that makes music unique and special. So back then I was positioning it against microwave ovens and fast food. And now we're putting it against immediate answers at the tips of our fingers.
Oh, yeah, and you bring up a great point that I was thinking about too, that this is not new. This is something that I'm sure during the Industrial Revolution, it was the same thing. It was like, yes, we've got all of these wonderful advances in technology, but they can't play the violin for us. They can't play the Beethoven Symphony. Going and seeing an actual symphony orchestra and hearing it is maybe more special now than ever. And your note that students are particularly enjoying this maybe renaissance of no phones. I'm also, I think, to some extent, seeing it in this summer class I am teaching online asynchronous jazz history. And I was trying to come up with all of the ways I could to discourage the students from using AI. And so I set up the class in a way that all of the writing I have them doing is not graded on grammar or mechanics. And it's kind of like the essays you were talking about. I just want them to listen to the selection of music and respond to it. And same with the short answers for the quizzes. And so far, they are clearly they are not using AI even to refine their answers. And I wonder if to some extent they were like, this is awesome. I'm glad that the only thing I am being graded on is I need to listen to this Louis Armstrong recording and I need to list the instruments that I think I hear. And he said in the instructions that if I miss some of the instruments, it's okay. I'm not going to lose points. I'm just supposed to try my best. And I think they might be enjoying the fact that they don't have these necessarily right or wrong, and they just have to try. And if they try, I'm basically giving them full credit. And I think for the most part, they're doing it.
Let me paint in broad strokes. You're reminding me of something else that I feel like I'm seeing. AI can give us a generically perfect answer, right? So it can be very plain, but technically correct and sort of uninteresting. Because that level of getting things just right is apparently at the tip of our fingers, I'm seeing the one bad thing I'm seeing this summer is more of a reticence to say something if it might be wrong.
Yeah.
And we've talked on this podcast before about like an old school drive for perfectionism and the way a piece of music sounds when it's prepared. But I think there's a different kind of perfectionism right now that like, oh, output is usually correct and clean. And I'm worried that my output might not be correct and clean. So something I'm finding it more important to do is both make it safe for young people to make mistakes and get a wrong answer, and without tons of reassurance. Like, anybody got any ideas on this? What do you think is going on? And somebody will offer an answer, and I'll be like, that may be true in some circumstances. It's not here. What other ideas are there? Without like coddling them, like, oh, hey, thanks so much for answering. And, there's a grain of truth there. Like, none of that, but just like, let's normalize it being okay to say or do things wrong out loud so that people say and do things more spontaneously and out loud so that they develop both the thinking skills and the resiliency.
Yeah, I think this is a huge opportunity at this turning point, as we've discussed many times over the last few years. Not everyone is born loving math. Not everyone is born loving how language is constructed. Most people are born loving music. They like to
Yep.
listen to music. They like to move. They like to dance. And so let's take advantage of that and the fact that most of what we are doing in the fine arts, you can't have AI do it right now. Certainly at the school level. Now, when we're talking about composing and things like that, like, yes, obviously it's making some great advances there. But Gemini can't play my trumpet for me. It can't play the viola for me. It can't sing this tenor part for me. And I think this is a real opportunity because this I think with the smartphone ban, I think this is going to be the next thing. This is going to be the next thing that the school districts and that state governments wrestle with, which is how do we get our students to actually think? And I think once again, we can serve our stuff up on a silver platter to them.
If there's a marketing genius out there listening who could come up with like a slogan for music programs for advocacy to remind the public, the funders, legislators, school board members that now is the time to lean into enabling musical experiences for students. I feel like there could be a campaign out there
Yeah.
that somebody could put together who's more creative than I am.
I think some people will say, we've been talking about this. We've been talking about music advocacy and how special and how different music is. I think that's true, but I think there's a slightly different take on it this time. In the
Yeah.
1990s, I was a student then, but when this was starting to really take off, I felt like this advocacy in terms of if we're not going to celebrate music for music's sake, then we're going to celebrate music for the fact that it makes us better at math. Or we're going to celebrate music for the fact that it maybe makes us better at teamwork or interpersonal skills. I think this is the first time that we are straight up at a point where we're saying, yeah, music might be one of the few or best things that just teaches you how to think, full stop.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. I think you're right about that. So we gotta keep talking about it.
So again, definitely want to credit the author. Again, that's Mia Silverio. It's called What AI is Doing to School. It's part of the Prof G Media empire run by Scott Galloway. So encourage listeners to check that out. He's been a great thinker as far as all things AI. He had, I don't know if you read his actual newsletter earlier this week, which was about AI. And somewhere in there, he said something along the lines of, if I would have used AI to just make this newsletter to you today, it would have been terrible. If I wouldn't have used AI at all to help me with it, it would have been
Mm,
unachievable, or we wouldn't have been able to afford to do it, or there wouldn't have been enough time or
yeah.
something. And
Yep.
I really think that that's the way to look at this going forward. That's the way I'm trying to approach it. And so this summer I started using Claude to help me with my program notes that I give for the municipal band that I conduct. And so I put my last 15 years worth of program notes into Claude. And I said, all right, I'm playing Festive Overture. Pull up whatever I said about Festive Overture last time and combine it into something that's about this many words. Or we're playing this new Legends of Soul medley that we haven't played before. Here are the four selections, just, a couple things about each one of those. But at the end of the day, I'm still evaluating that. And I'm like, no, that reads weird, or that looks like it's in the wrong order, or this is a straight up wrong fact, Claude. And so if I would have just read exactly what it spit out, I would sound like some weird robot. It'd be like that Super Bowl commercial with the AI therapist.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That's what
That
I
was
would
good.
sound like. So it has helped me move much faster on them. But even all that being said, even with me going over and proofreading them. Last night, I'm reading the program notes to this Moana medley to the audience, and I announce where the saxophone solo is, and then we're in the middle of the medley. I'm like, no, the saxophone solo is actually on How Far I'll Go. It's not on You're Welcome. And I just didn't, Claude made its best guess. And what I think is funny is Claude doesn't say things like, so I guessed where I thought you wanted the saxophone soloist listed. Is that correct? So there's
Yeah.
still, even I would consider myself, I'm getting to a point where I'm maybe a B plus user of AI as far as the common folk go. Like there's still a lot of pitfalls. So what do you think the action item is for you put out a call to someone who might be able to come up with a brilliant marketing campaign for this? Aside from that particular listener, what about the other couple thousand just normal folks listening?
Anybody listening to this can say on a regular basis to their students out loud, thanks for being here. Music is good. This is good for all of us because there's no shortcuts, no AI. It really helps us think. It helps us be wrong and fix it. It helps us problem solve. And right now, this is one of the best places to do it. I wouldn't denigrate other classes. I think that sometimes in
Yeah.
music advocacy, we can do that.
Yep.
I would just say, kids are smart. They will figure this out. They will pick up what we're laying down if we just say, this is the best place to practice your problem solving skills. And again, from my realm of student leadership, it's not just about like refining, measures 9 through 16. It's about making sure that Shannon holds her trumpet up, or that Dustin puts consonants on at the end of his phrases, and that Jill hangs her robe up properly, and that Tony doesn't steal my rosin. Like all of those problems that show up in the classroom require some problem solving, some interpersonal skills. There's no shortcuts for, and keep saying, this is a place where you learn how to solve problems. This is a place where you learn how to think. Let's keep it up.
Do you think not going full blown like campaign style advocacy, but is there something, especially as we're thinking about middle school, where maybe the parents have a lot more influence on whether or not the students are signing up for our class, how we maybe get this information to them in a way that doesn't look like a position paper or a public service campaign?
I almost think that's what we need. It's like some kind of catchphrase that you say at middle school concerts. Keep your kids in music. It's where they learn how to solve problems and think. Again, get a marketing guru to do that. But if it's just kind of a drumbeat without being annoying, because I think middle school concerts are often a place where teachers say, keep your kids in music. It's really cool in high school. But instead, it's just a more pointed, because parents know what's going on also.
Yeah.
Music is the best place, or one of the best places. I go best place and then let other people argue outside of there, because then they'll keep talking about it. Hey, music is the best place for your students to solve problems and learn how to think. And they might come back and say, so are team sports. And then I would say to that, yep, also true. Let's do both. But most of our music students are, a target audience for talking about how music is going to help them think, solve problems, work as a team. It's the best place for that. Keep them in music.
Yeah. Well, we'll keep visiting this topic for sure. And listeners, we definitely want to hear from you what you're seeing and what you think and suggestions you have, what's worked, and we'll continue to spread the word.
It's good stuff, Steve. And listeners, we do appreciate the thought leadership of Scott Galloway. So if you're looking for something else to listen to or look at, he definitely has a lot of content out there. So you go down a rabbit hole there with us.
Yes. Thank you for introducing me to Scott Galloway, by the way, Alan.
This is what we do, Steve. We lift each other up. Let's keep it up, brother.
Steve and Alan's pro tips in a short time. Learn a